Welcome to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out with Julie Coraccio. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., hear easy to implement tips on decluttering all areas of your life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic. Learn how to release clutter and get organized to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. An award-winning professional organizer and coach, Julie is passionate about supporting people in clearing clutter so they can share their gifts with the world and live a more joyful and fulfilling life.
Hey everyone, December's bonus is going to be a little different. My cover for Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out says, "Clutter-Free for a more joyful and fulfilling life." Today I'm going to share an interview I did with someone who lived life to the fullest. This was an interview I did with Sybil Rhodes, who was like a second mother to me. She passed in January of 2014, and we did this interview in 2013. Sybil was also the only co-pilot I had when I did Reawaken Your Brilliance. Sybil led an amazing life. She grew up dirt poor and never became very wealthy, yet she traveled the world and never knew a stranger. In my eyes, Sybil led a fulfilled and joyful life. I do this show because when you release what you don't need, you can create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. Sybil never smoked a day in her life, yet developed lung cancer with a diagnosis of stage 4. She lived with stage 4 for over 12 years. I believe that is a testament to her life, her faith, friends and family, and her fulfillment of life. I've never met someone who embraced life as much as Sybil. Her sister told me when she died, her last words were, "Take me now, take me now, take me now." Leave it to Sybil to embrace death and be ready for the next adventure. I hope you gained something important from our talk and maybe perhaps discover something that you're ready to release that's cluttering your life right now.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Reawaken Your Brilliance. Although we are recording live, this show will not be aired until April. So I'm very excited. I'm here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and backed by popular demand is the incomparable Miss Sybil Rhodes. And those of you that tune into Nissan Communication knows that that Sybil hit it out of the ballpark the other day with Marilyn's show. So we brought her back to bring more of her wit and wisdom. So welcome, Sybil.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a very pleasant day here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is the oldest city in the Louisiana Purchase. I want to tell you just a little bit about the day I was born. It was in July 1933, which was a very bad time for the financial world. It was during the high days of the Depression. Anyway, my mother started her processing of me in the morning, and then they called the next door neighbor who was going to come and be with my mother when I was born. But in the long run, they did call and get the doctor. Actually, they didn't call him. Someone got on a horse and went to his house, and he came out and he spent the whole day with my mother and myself until I was born. I tell you this because I think it's remarkable in 78 years that we have gone from the doctor coming to the birthing of a person and staying all day until now when we go to the hospital at the last moment. But there was one funny little incident. All the people in the community came in and out during the daytime to visit. My great-grandmother came by and she helped with the birthing process too. I'm sure assisted the doctor. And one lady went home to see about something. And then she came back, and in her excitement, she sat down in a chair and did not see that the chair had a pan of water in it. So that's lightened the whole situation of the birthing day up.
That's wonderful. I like that. Now, Sybil, I wanted to ask you a question. Your daddy was a sharecropper, and you have ended up leading a remarkable life. And even though your father started off as a sharecropper, he ended up being able to purchase the land that he had sharecropped on. There are a lot of people out there who believe if they're born into a certain set of circumstances, that that's where they need to remain their entire life. So what drove you? Why were you able to go higher and reach beyond your means when you started, or where you started in life?
Well, I think simply deprivation. I felt like I was deprived of many things that other people have, and I wanted those just like anyone else. I wanted more than a grade school education. Many people in the area that I lived in only went through the 8th grade, and they considered they had a good, especially a man, considered that he had a very good education to go through the 8th grade. I wanted a better education. I wanted, for one of the things I wanted, my father never had a car, never had a vehicle. We never had a telephone. And of course, for many, until I was in the 8th grade, which was 13 years old, we didn't have electricity in the house. We used coal oil lamps to light by. We cut our own wood for heating. We did eventually get butane for cooking, and then we progressed on to having butane for heating as well as the wood. However, I must say we continued to like a wood stove or a fireplace. We had a fireplace, and we enjoyed that. But I think just the push to have things that other people have, that might sound a little negative, but that's really what pushed me, was because I was deprived of many things and everything.
But it's interesting because a lot of people who are deprived also have that drive that you do, but they become obsessive and want material goods and want to have a bunch of luxuries. Why don't you think you ever got pushed into that direction and escaped that?
I think I ended up getting my luxuries by pushing what I did. I consider that I have a very luxurious life, I mean, I've been able to do much of what I wanted to, but I think I had a drive, and I might give you a little example of the drive I think that I had or have. I was in Turkey once, and I bought a little rug, and I explained to the man I would hunt him down to the ends of the earth if I didn't receive it. And so I didn't receive it, and I didn't receive it, and I didn't receive it. So he had given me a telephone number locally. Well, I'm at U.S. in the U.S. To call. Well, in talking to them, they seemed very distant from him, and finally I asked if they maybe had abandoned their relationship, and they sort of implied they had. And I called my bank, and I was told by somebody, it was on a credit card, that they could have forgotten the money for me, but my local bank didn't choose to do that. So I just got so provoked and aggravated that I just simply called the Turkey embassy. In about 2 or 3 weeks, I had my money back. So I think in talking about what you can do to achieve your goals in life, I think it's persistency. Want, sometime need. I didn't particularly need that item, but want, need, and just the drive to achieve, I think will get you to your goals anyway.
Ready to change your life? Are you ready to release all of your clutter, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? Our new Declutter Your Life video series is a how-to, go at your own pace course to guide you through the process of clearing clutter. The course includes all of our popular How to Get Organized classes. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
And I also think that there's a greater lesson here. Don't mess with Sybil Rhodes or she will hunt you down. So for those of you listening, just remember that. So what would you say is your philosophy on life? What are kind of your guiding principles and values that make you get out of bed every day and that you try to do?
Well, I think acceptance and love. I think if you accept a person where they are, perhaps they need to change their ways. Perhaps you try to help them to change their ways and they don't change them. But you continue to accept them as another human being. This does not mean you have to take them to your bosom and be their bosom friend or even their friend, but you just accept that, let's say somebody down the street has loud noise all the time. Well, if you can't achieve that goal with them and ceasing that, well, the best thing to do is to go ahead and just accept that that's the way it is. I just think acceptance is and if we accepted each other, we would have less war, and we would have less crime, and we would be happier.
I totally agree with you about that. And I have to admit, when you were doing your interview with Marilyn, I cried through the first half. And so it would be my goal to keep this upbeat. But I would love to share with us. This is one of the funniest stories you ever shared with me. Share your, I think this love and acceptance would have worked in this particular instance. Share the story about your mama and the naming the pig.
Oh, well, my mother was a very strong person. And when my father was in the shipyard during the World War II, which was nearly 4 years, well, we continued to live in Upper East Texas. And so she was the man of the house as well as the mistress of the house. So she had to make many decisions. And she was also the oldest child of 12 children. So responsibility was always with her. But we lived in a sharecropper, in a sharecropping position. This was before my daddy made the money in the shipyard, and that's another issue that I'd like to touch on too. We lived in this house that belonged to the sheriff. We were his sharecropper. And so they had 2 children, our age, and the mother was named Ethel. She did not like for us to play with her children, but we would slip off and meet halfway in the pasture sometime and play with each other. But she really thought that we were not good enough for her. Anyway, in the meantime, from their house we went to the place that we owned. And by that time, Daddy had made enough money to own his own place. So she bought a sow, that's a female pig, from Ethel. Well, she named her Miss Ethel. Well, Miss Ethel turned out to be a real jewel. She ended up having her first time 12 piglets. And needless to say, we shared little piglets and pigs to the community, as well as we had a very fruitful year in having enough pork, which we also, did ourselves. We smoked it and canned it and used it in every way that we could. Remember, we still didn't have refrigeration at that time. Now, I did want to touch on about the shipyard. I know that our society runs in an interesting way, but through many lives being destroyed, this was how my father overcame his status as a sharecropper. In other words, we had a war. The government had to hire people to make ships and ammunition and what have you. So through all those young people that were killed or otherwise maimed and hurt, we achieved and got a place of our own. So, I just want to say I can't say it to those veterans, but I would like to say to all veterans, my hats are off to you. And if you wondered why my father wasn't in the Army, he was past, this was when they had draft days, and he was past the draft age was the reason he wasn't in the service too. Unless you were 4F, unable physically, you were in a certain age, you were drafted. And as they got older, he was in the next section of being drafted if the war had not ended. But again, I want to say thank you, veterans everywhere.
Well, I know you had also told me that you wanted to tell another story that was one of your favorites from childhood about the time that your mother had to go get a battery for the radio and was driving a wagon.
Yeah, we didn't have electricity, so we didn't have a radio, which was pretty important to people out in the community. This was how we learned about when the war ended, when the war started, and stuff like that. And because we didn't have out in the country, we didn't have newspaper delivery either. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure that I knew about a newspaper until I was, 7 or 8 years old. Nobody I knew took the newspaper. We did take a little magazine, and the older people out there my age will remember a magazine called The Grit. But at any rate, my aunt and her husband were late getting in their cotton crop. So they needed help to picking cotton. And so we went and helped them pick cotton, and they paid us in a radio that didn't have a battery. So somehow or other, my mother found out a place, which was about 1.5 miles from our house, that had a battery for sale. So she wanted to be sure it was correct battery. So she borrowed my step-grandmother's wagon and her mules, and to go over to pick up the battery. Well, after about 1 mile, we approached a highway. And just as we turned on the highway, a train came along, and the horses ran away. But I tell you, my mother was strong enough and everything. We ran down in the ditch and kept running along, but she kept the wagon from turning over. None of us got hurt, although I think she should have backhanded my sister and myself, because we were screaming and carrying on like wild people. But anyway, it was the most interesting experience, and certainly one that made our day in a way.
Now, since I've been down here, I've had the good fortune of knowing Sybil since I was 19 years old, which was just a few years ago. I'm sure all of you are thinking. But it's been amazing to me how often people have stopped by to say hello and just chat with you and check in with you, and are obviously very inspired by you. So who inspires you?
Well, I think, and I wish that he and she were still alive. Of course, my mother has inspired me greatly. She always felt like you could do anything that you put your mind to doing. And if it was the right thing anyway. If it was the wrong thing, she had other opinions about that, which were very strong too. But I think that I had a high school teacher, a man. He taught me math, but he taught some other courses. And I went to a very small school. And as a matter of fact, I graduated from a class of 13. Now, the classes after that were bigger. And the part of it had to do, many of the boys in my class dropped out and went to service. Things were bad at that time, too, financially in the area that I lived in. But I just...
So the high school man was your teacher, was very inspirational.
Yes, he was one. And also my high school home economics teacher was very, very instrumental. Both of them are deceased, but one of them is Leo Russian, and one of them was Mr. Woods. And I would like for their families to know how much I appreciate them.
What was so inspiring about them?
Well, Mr. Woods, he just seemed to like our class as a whole. Mm-hmm. My sister had him for a teacher 2 or 3 years later, and quite frankly, most of them couldn't stand him. But he seemed to just gee-haw with our class. Ms. Russian was one of these kind of people. For example, if a girl got in trouble becoming pregnant or some problem like that, she was there realizing that what was happening, and she was there right in their lives, helping them every way she could. She also would sort of look after children who were neglected and who were sexually and physically abused, which was beyond her realm of teaching. So she was just generally a good all-around teacher and a community helper.
I can see how that has influenced you, because I've known you for so long, and I've seen how you've always had an ear for someone. If someone wanted to talk or just was upset, you'd always be there for them. And I think that that's a very strong quality that you have. And one thing I've always been curious about was, how did you when I first met you, I was 19, and a lot of people your age wouldn't have responded as positively as you did, being in a dorm full of mainly teenagers, 18 to 22. So you're different in that way. So what about you made you say to everyone, hey, I'm here if you need a problem?
Well, mainly I told them right up front when they looked up and you could see, oh, we're going to have that old woman in the dorm. And that is true. They do. You can, because I've had them say the things I think they said about me, about other people. And I worked nearly 20 years and lived in that dorm that much. So I became somewhat of a fixture. But I always told them right up front, I let them know I was not their mother, I was not their father, and I didn't take them to rear. If I could help them in any way, because a lot of those young people didn't have cars, and I was there with my car. You know, if they needed to be taken somewhere, or if they needed any help in other ways, I helped them. And I did get called on a lot, which, to be perfectly honest, made me feel good. So I think sometimes we have to remember that when we do things for people, that we get as much good out of it as that person does. As a matter of fact, I think I get more good out of it.
I would agree with that. I am a huge fan of paying it forward, and I had something happen at Christmas where I brought some groceries for a woman. They denied her WIC card, and she was so grateful and so thankful and acted like I had done her some huge favor, but I felt she got the short end of the stick because it made me feel so good. So I absolutely believe that. What would you say? You have led such an incredible life, but if you were to think about some of your favorite memories or your greatest memories, what would those be?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if these are the best or favorite memories, but I want to tell you a little bit about what we did for fun. Remember, we didn't always have the radio. As a matter of fact, I was quite up 11 or 12 years old before we had the radio and didn't have a newspaper and didn't have electricity. But this is some of the things that we did for pleasure or fun. Well, one of the things we would make straw houses, which we would take the pine straw and rake it up, and we'd make couches and beds and stoves, and then we'd make the just a regular house to play in, like playing house. And another thing is we got older, in which we could go down to the woods and pull down the bigger pine trees, and then we would ride them like up and down and up and down. You had to get one exactly right, or it would bend over too far. If it was too strong, it was sort of, if you got bent down too far enough to get on it to go up and down, well, it would pitch you off and everything. The other thing that we did, which I cannot believe, we would chunk wasp nest. I remember one time on Sunday I chunked a wasp nest and I got 5 or 6 stings on my face. Now, you know, we must have really been acclimated to that sort of thing, to the outside, I'm saying, the outside atmosphere, because although it swelled up a little bit, I didn't have to see a doctor. We wouldn't have known to see a doctor anyway. We didn't have a way to go see the doctor. So that's not some of the things that are memorable to me. I think my greatest thing has been being able to travel over most of the world, and I traveled by seeing it in a very basic way. Sometimes it was camping out, in the desert and out from Egypt. I camped out and with a bed once overnight. And I would say that it was the most beautiful night I've ever seen. The stars were just out of this world. You cannot imagine what it's like to see the heavens without there being electric lights or anything like that. It was just beautiful. I have gone hot air ballooning, which I think is just like being near heaven. It couldn't be anything closer to heaven than that. It's such a soft feeling, so it just inspires you.
In your garage, you have maps of everywhere, and you have push pins, I believe, in every place that you've traveled. Do you know how many countries you've traveled to?
No, I'm sorry to say, I never have counted them.
Well, you've been to, let's see, Mongolia,
Yeah, Siberia,
Siberia. I don't know many
Russia,
people. Russia, Peru.
Egypt,
I know.
Egypt, and Israel,
And Israel.
and most all the European countries, and most all the Scandinavian countries.
And then you've traveled to
all the states.
All the states.
Most of the provinces in Canada, and also I have gone to Spanish school in Guatemala for 4 weeks, and really I didn't learn any Spanish. I'm sorry to say, but we made outdoor latrines and stoves that you make in the corner of their little houses. And the reason that stoves were made was because there's a certain way that you can eliminate the smoke, which prevents the newborn babes, who are mainly kept in that room, in this room where the kitchen is. They kept there the first 6 weeks. So we made a stove that was ventilated a certain way in which the smoke could go outside. You have to understand that Guatemala is a very, very deprived country. I mean, the children are running around going through garbage piles all the time. Their street children start as young as 4 years old. And so I have to do that. And I can't explain to you how basic the tools were that we worked with. I mean, we had one hoe and one shovel. We used, when we made the outdoor latrines, we used old motor oil, which had been drained off when they changed it and changed it to new motor oil in the cars. That's what we swabbed out the things that you put the concrete in, the mold. And
that must have had a great impact on the people that you helped.
I hope it did and everything, but I'm not sure about it. I mean, what would happen to people that got the outdoor latrines, they would come and pick them up. So I never just see anybody that got one.
We have a good question for you on chat. What is the one change in our world that left the most impact on you up to now?
Could you repeat the question?
It's what is the one change in our world that left the most impact on you up until now?
Oh, I can assure you it's the computer. I can no way in the world capture it or control it or any way get ahead of it or even with it. I mean, it's really just still a real boogeroo to me. But I suppose what I really like most, I enjoy the television. So I think that would be from a personal standpoint. I think that would be what I enjoy the most, you know. I just think we should think about when and where we're going to war. And remember, part of my thing is love. And I think if you love somebody enough, we won't be going to war so much.
Now, you know, you've had great adventures in your life, and probably more so than anyone I've ever known. Although I joke with you, my 5-year-old nephew, Max, is going to give you a good run for your money because he loves life just as much as you do. What advice would you give to someone who maybe is just fearful? It doesn't matter if it's afraid of leaving their home or taking a plane ride or maybe traveling to another country. I mean, I think fear stops so many people from doing things. So what would you do to encourage someone to get over a fear?
Well, first and foremost, you need, unless you're planning a trip to out of the world, which I've never planned a trip out of the world. You know, I did want to go up so badly when the teacher got killed in one of our space explorations. I did want to do that, so I don't know how I would have prepared for it, but I would have been up for it. I think you need to tell yourself first, I'm here on Earth. Whatever you're doing, you're basically here on Earth. Now you say that's not true if I take the plane ride and everything. Yeah, you're still here on Earth. And the next thing, take it in small little steps, like the movie Baby Steps. Maybe you want to never flown in an airplane. Take a short trip. Go to an airport first. Go and look at an airplane and see what it's like. Talk to other people. Then if you think that you really want to do that, then you're going to do it. If it really wasn't, if you really are just been giving it tongue value, just talking about it and talking it up until you think you do, well, then you just need to take that off your slate, because you really need to want to do whatever it is. Want's a big thing.
I agree with that. So, how do you want people to remember you, Sybil?
That's such a hard question. I want them to remember me that I was always willing to help and everything. And I did participate in some things that I am going to mention, not because I'm trying to promote myself, because I have nothing to promote. I'm sure that you know from the other session that I had that I do have advanced cancer. I'm in stage 4, and it's really a miracle that I continue to live. But I participate in some very good organizations. I've worked or volunteered in a hospice for AIDS victims, and I did that in the 90s.
I want you to expand on that, because I remember you telling me stories. We've known each other since 1988, and you were one of the first people I knew, because still at that time when you were volunteering in the AIDS hospice, AIDS was still fairly new. I mean, we had some ideas about it, but people were still afraid to touch people with AIDS. They didn't want to use a toilet that someone with AIDS had, and you're really pioneering in that field. So why did you do that, and what allowed you, because there are today people who believe that those that have AIDS it's a curse from God. So what allowed you to do that?
Well, really what really prompted me to do it is because the lack of people participating as a volunteer in that field. They just didn't have anybody to speak for them, more or less. And I just felt like I just felt like I was called to help. I drove 55 miles. I drove 70 miles to once a week for a couple of years. I didn't quit for any particular reason. Other things happened in my life. But during the time I did help, I volunteered in the AIDS hospice. People did think I had people tell me I was crazy. And I had a feeling they tried not to touch me too. But I mean, they never said that, but I always felt like the way they drew back sometime when it came up, that they were fearful of catching the AIDS. But I had some very interesting experiences working with them, and they, I remember one that I just felt so good about. They were in the living room looking at these beautiful women that were going across the stage. Oh gosh, they were gorgeous, beautiful. And so I said, "Excuse me, what are y'all watching?" And so they said to one person, that's your problem, that's your situation. You have to tell her." And he pointed up and he said, "Oh, that's me right there." And they were he was dressed so pretty in a gown and had his makeup on and everything, in the person of a woman, And I said to him, "You look so pretty," and I never will forget how pleased I was that he was pleased that I told him how pretty he looked and everything. And that's one of the things I meant about acceptance. The fact that he had AIDS, but he had gone through the stage that he had dressed in what he wanted to, And I went ahead and not only that, but I extended it to letting him know that I accepted his position in life. And we did have some to die while I was there. And I corresponded with a number of them until most of them that I knew had passed away. They now have a very beautiful home. It's an antebellum home in Shreveport, and each person has their own room, and it's just a wonderful situation. But there are other things out there. Habitat for Humanity. I volunteered. I actually went on location for a month with Volunteers for Humanity. That is a wonderful. What I'm trying to say, there are wonderful programs out there. Sometimes you can volunteer on them. Just do something at home, especially the Habitat one. You can. There's many things that you can do in working with them. I did go on location for a month with them, and I was offered, which I felt was a real. I felt real good about it. At any rate, they asked me if I would come and paint on the job. They would every once in a while they would do a job, and they planned it out exactly, and they would do a house completely to get to move into in a week. And but unfortunately, I was going back to the park to work and did not get to participate in that endeavor.
Ready to change your life? Are you ready to release all of your clutter, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? Our new Declutter Your Life video series is a how-to, go at your own pace course to guide you through the process of clearing clutter. The course includes all of our popular How to Get Organized classes. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
I want to go back to a second because one, this is a central philosophy and values that you live by. What do you think it is about you that allows you to have such an accepting heart and such love? Because again, for instance, you were volunteering in the AIDS home at a time when people shunned those that had AIDS. You know, you mentioned a man dressing up as a woman. I mean, gender issues are still seen as a very negative and wrong and evil by so many people. So what is it about you that makes you so loving and accepting? Did you have maybe a particular instance in your life where you weren't accepted and that maybe drove you to be this way? What do you think it is?
Well, I can't think of any instance that occurred. I was able to retire when I was 53 and a half. I started working in the in national parks as a summertime job and traveling a lot. But I felt that it was not right for me to devote part of my life to volunteering for. It's just not right. So I just felt the need for me that I couldn't go out there making money, then gallivanting around. That's why I did it. Then about a month and a half, I would go on a trip. And true enough, it were not expensive trips, but there were trips. And I did not think it was right to be sitting around the rest of the time. And it wasn't right for me not to give back to society. I think everybody should give a certain amount of time back to society. If they look around, they can find a need for. I think what people want to do, they want a high profile position. Let's say they had a fairly high profile position. So then when they change that over to doing volunteer work, they don't think about that they're not going to get that high position. They need to think about doing the little menial things that maybe some other people don't do. Those things have to be done too. And believe you me, that's what we did when I did Habitat for Humanity. And that's what I did when I was in the hospice thing. I went to the grocery store for them. I cooked. I took them to the doctor. I didn't have a job of setting up a program for them. I didn't have a high position. And when I did the Habitat thing, I painted. I helped paint in a month I helped paint 3 houses, not outside, but all inside.
I have volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, and I think that that's a wonderful cause. They have the people who are going to be the recipients of the home join in as well, and it's really fantastic. Looking back on your life, do you have any regrets? Is there anything you do differently, or you're pretty much happy with the way things went?
Well, on a general level, I think I used to be too uptight about protocol. You know, if somebody got a little bit out of, I can't even think of an example right now, but let's say they didn't exactly fall in. Maybe their grammar wasn't too good. Lately, it seems my grammar hasn't been too good either. But their grammar wasn't good. And I would think in my mind, oh, that person should keep their mouth shut. If they can't talk right, they should keep their mouth shut. So I think, I was sort of stiff and unaccepting. And I think that I have had to work on acceptance too. We all have to work on it. I still have to work on acceptance. Love is a lot easier to work on than acceptance. If you just think about it, you can say, oh, well, I can love that person. And maybe you do love that person, but maybe you don't really have to put that love to task either. You may not have to ever prove it. But I think acceptance, you more or less have to stand by what you really believe and say.
I think that's wonderful. And I also want to switch gears for a minute, because if you're building latrines in Guatemala wasn't enough, sleeping out in the desert in the stars wasn't enough, you are also, and I don't know if everyone knows this about you, a published author. So I want you to tell us about the book you wrote.
Well, yes. Well, I wrote it with my sister, and it was my sister's idea to begin with. It was 84 and still practicing. He is now deceased, but at the time, it was our doctor, our local doctor in the Shelby County in Texas, and he was still practicing at 84. And we did a book about him, which unfortunately didn't turn out to be a bestseller, but I love the book anyway. And so that was really enjoyed that. And my high school girlfriend and I have written a romance novel together. We have not successfully been able to get it published yet, but we can always hope and try and everything.
And we will get that published, and when that is published, we will be sure to let you know, so all of you can buy a copy, because I have no doubt that it's going to be entertaining, especially as I know Sybil so well. So I also want you to talk, another great passion of your life has been bridge. And I have had the good fortune of visiting what I call the Steel Magnolias Bridge Club. Because I have to tell you, Steel Magnolias, for those of you who don't know, it was based here in Natchitoches. If you watch the film, Steel Magnolias, some of it's filmed in Natchitoches, and Sybil actually went to the funeral of the real girl that died. But the Bridge Club has been one of the greatest joys that I've been able to be a part of when I'm here. But I want you to talk to me a little bit about that. What I'm amazed is at the friendships of this group. Not only do they care about you, they care about each other. The entire time I've been here, the phone has been off the hook with people seeing how you're doing. So just talk to me a little bit about that group.
Well, of course, I like to talk about bridge anyway. And I was fortunate enough, at one point, I didn't think I would get my life masters. Now, if you're not into the bridge world, you won't understand that. But people belong to, it's called the ACBL, American Bridge Association, and you play in a club, which you can ask some friend about exactly how it works. But I was able to get my life masters, which meant I got 300 points of various areas, attending national and local and regional events, and then I got my bronze, which meant I got 200 more points. And it just keeps going up. It's sort of like, well, it helps to keep your mind more alert. That's one reason I work crossword puzzles. That's the two things I try to do is keep my mind as alert as possible. And so But what the bridge does, it draws people together, and they have this thing that they're going to look after each other. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to have friends, and to have friends who look after you and care about you. So I suggest, whether you do bridge or not, that you have some fun aim in life that is would be ongoing.
Now, what advice would you give to someone? I mean, there was a famous book out there on how to make friends, but someone out there might be shy, and I know a lot of people struggle socially. What advice would you give to someone on how they can be a good friend or to get more friends?
Well, to get friends, you have to be a good friend, and it doesn't have to be big things. People seem to think that everything has to come in a bow-tied package. Things don't have to come in a bow-tied package. You're in the elevator, and there's the ugliest person there that you've ever seen, and she is just beyond redemption as far as looks and everything. And she has a pretty pin on, or maybe her earrings are pretty. It never hurts to give a person a truly meant compliment. And so I just think that if you are attuned to other people, then you are going to be a friend.
I think that's great, and I think all the ugly people of the world won't have to worry when they run into you that you won't call them out on that. So I think that's a good thing. I'm funning with you, Sybil.
Okay.
Got to give you a little fun here. We have to have our humor.
Yeah.
I also want you to talk about, I had the privilege, I've been down here for about a week, doing your weekly prayer group that you do. And again, I was just so humbled by the wonderful women there, and how they cared about you, and that just their nurturing of everyone. Tell us a little bit about that. And if you want to talk about your faith, you don't have to, but how that influence has been in your life. You're about the prayer group or Christianity, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I am Christian, and I don't have any other beefs or call outs with other religion. They have their own things. It's really not my prayer group. I was fortunate enough. This is a woman's prayer group. Mainly it's Methodist. I am Baptist, but it's anybody's welcome. But they invited me when my time of need has become more in a crucial way. My time is very, very limited, and they asked me, and they have been such supporters, and they have promised me that when I am dying, they will go around, stand around my bed and sing old songs, Christian songs that I like and everything. They just so soothing, and they're all wonderful to me, and I hope that I'm wonderful to them, because they're certainly a great pet. And it just makes you feel good.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that. As I've mentioned, I've known Sybil for 20 plus years, and she really is a walking miracle. Because have you been in stage 4 for 9 years? Is that what
I've
it
been in
is?
stage 4 for 7 years.
But you've been in stage 4 for 7 years, and not many people live that long in stage 4, do they?
That's correct. My doctors call me a miracle. They still don't know why I'm alive. In July, he told me in January of last year, not this year, last year, my cancer doctor told me I would probably live 6 months. When I lived 6 months, he just said he didn't know quite what to do with me, that he'd only had his patient, with my medication I was taking, I had only lived 11 months. So when I got past the 11 months, which has been 2 months ago, he just says, keep on doing what you're doing, and don't give up, and be positive, and I don't know what to do with you.
What do you think your legacy is, or what would you like your legacy to be? Like, when you've passed, how do you want people to remember you? How do you think they'll remember you?
I don't have no idea how people will remember me, but I hope they will remember me that I consider myself a true friend to them. That's the way I'd like to be remembered, and I'd like for them to know that I love all of them.
Why do you think it is that you are so courageous? I mean, I have to say I'm a little bit biased, but you truly are one of the most courageous women, and not even of women, persons that I've ever met. Why is that? What do you think is?
Well, I maintain that we're all humans and we're all here on the earth together. And if I get thrown off in the backwoods of the Amazon, and I do know about the backwoods of the Amazon, that I'm going to be looked after by somebody. I don't think that somebody's going to shoot me or arrow me or anything like that. So I just think we're all here on earth together, and there's somebody that's going to look after me and take care of me. They've done it so far.
Talk to me a little bit about, you told me the story, and I can't remember if this was when you were at the hotel on the Black Sea, which ended up being a tent, or if it was in the desert with the Bowdens, that you've always felt protected by God.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I have spent a lot of time with God when I have been in these positions that I have put myself in sometimes, particularly when I was on the Black Sea, and when they showed us our room, it was a tent and it didn't have a lock on it, and it just had 2 pads in there, and for our light they handed us a candle and a box of matches. And when I was in the Amazon, and way up in the Amazon, when we were going through walking, and there were different animals and insects that I didn't know, believe you me, God has had a hard time keeping up with me, but he's been there every step of the way. And for him, that's been a real task, I can tell you. But I thank him from the bottom of my heart. I hope that all of you have a greater being in your life.
I agree with you with that. I think, I know the atheists have been making the news a lot lately, and I think, again, to each his own, but that just, for me personally, kind of makes me sad that you think that's it when you die, or there's nothing greater than yourself, not having that to believe in. And we have a question from chat. When the time comes, what are you planning on taking with you to the other side?
My soul.
Your soul, there you go.
I'm sorry, that's all God is going to require. It's just my soul. And that will be all I will be taking. That'll be all that I need. And I really, some days I really pray to die when I'm in great pain, and look forward to dying. But today's not one of those. I'm not packing my bags today. I feel fairly good today.
I have to ask you this, Sybil, in our Western society, talking about death is very taboo, but you are obviously comforted or comfortable talking about death. Why is that?
Well, I had a very good experience with a sort of a pre-death experience, and it just sort of paved the way for me. At least that's the way I felt that it did, and so I would like to say to anyone that does want to communicate with me about what needs to talk about death, is fearful of it, and they think that talking with someone. I do have an email, Sybil R11@yahoo.com. I'd be glad to communicate with someone if they felt that I could be helpful, and everything.
I think that's a very wonderful and generous offer. So I'd like to ask you, Sybil, a lot of people who watch the show might be going through a difficult time. They might going through divorce. They might have lost their job and just really struggling right now. And I have to say, you are someone, my advice is to be a Sybil or find a Sybil, because you are someone through my entire life that I felt, one, believed in me, but I really felt, wow, if I got in trouble, you were someone that I could talk to, and I could talk to you frankly. There'd never be any judgment. But what advice would you give to someone that is out there struggling right now?
Well, I think you have to find your bigger being, if you don't already have a bigger being. And in my case, it's God. If you have a bigger being, then you need to call on them. You need to look around and see what your resources are. Is one of your resources not really a resource? Maybe you ought to rethink your resources. And then you need to think about who is really your resource, and what can they do or not do for you. And I spend a lot of time praying, but my prayers are not usually asking. My prayers are usually thanking God for, because look, I'm not in a nursing home. I am semi-housebound, but I am able to get around. I'm able to have friends in. Just last week I had, with the help of somebody, I could not do it with myself. I had friends to come and spend time with me. We had 4 small dinner parties for friends, and I'm just saying that you need to look around and see who can help you, who maybe is not helping you, that think they might be helping you. And you need to spend a lot of prayer with your greater being, which in my case is God.
Now, can you share with us, I've known this story about you, but I think you had a really beautiful story when not too long ago you thought your time might have been up, but you had a very interesting experience in the hospital. What was that?
Well, that was sort of my near-death experience. I was in the hospital with pneumonia, and the doctor had already come by at one point and told me, well, he was having some trouble getting responses from me. And so he said, well, you know you're dying, don't you? Which at that time I didn't know I was dying. And but I had to lean, the only way I could be comfortable, I had to lean across the little table that they roll around and put stuff on, where I put pillows on it. And so out of this wall in front of me came these huge, they were like 4 or 5 feet tall, birds, and I don't know what they were, but they were dark and black, and they were not heavy or anything. They just lightly lit on my shoulder, and about that time, out of the wall came this beautiful, beautiful iridescent smoke. It was orange and pinks and purple, well, not purple, blues, and it was just beautiful. And I thought, this is where God is coming out to get me. And I felt real comforted by it. It was not uncomfortable. It was very comforting. And I was somewhat a little taken back when the smoke just recessed itself, just gradually recessed itself, and there I was in the hospital room again. However, it must not have been my time to go.
Well, we hope that you're still with us a little bit longer. I know, again, just having known you for so long and seeing the outpouring of love while I've been here, it's truly, I hope to have the same at the end of my life, or right now. I think I'm pretty blessed there with friends, but I think it's really important. So is there anything else that you'd want people to know about what's something maybe that you've never shared with anyone? Is there something that even your best Bridge Club friends wouldn't know about you?
No, there might be things that I probably haven't shared with them, but I probably wouldn't share it either. I'm sorry.
What? You're not going to do it for everyone in the world to see?
I don't believe I am. And everything. I could tell about my most embarrassing moment.
Do you want to share that?
I don't know that people want to hear it, but yeah, when I was in the first grade, well, my mother made our little underpanties out of sugar sacks. Sugar used to come in cloth sacks. Well, it just had one piece of elastic around the top. Well, the water system, we would turn on a faucet, like at the end of a hose, but it wasn't at the end of the hose. It was those faucets. We would go outside and we would turn those on and we would drink. Well, that went off. And so we had to draw water. They had to draw water, and they would lean it forward for you the bucket. They would pull it up in a bucket, and they'd lean it forward, and you would drink. Well, in the meantime, the elastic had broken in my panties, and I was holding up each side of my hand. Well, 6 years old, you tend to forget things. So when they leaned the bucket forward to me, instead of using one hand, I turned loose, and my panties dropped around my ankle. And I never will forget to this day how their children, especially those little boys, laughed at me. And it was a really most embarrassing experience in my life.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? I would just say to them, if they could see you now, because you have led an exemplary life and have influenced many people, and but I can understand how embarrassing that would be. So I have another question for
Well,
you.
I want to just comment a
Okay.
little farther on that. I think that story, and when I have repeated it before, has caused many lives for people, and that's what the world is about. Is being, if you can laugh, then you're okay. So I hope all of you laughed about it, because it's not intended to be, oh, you poor little thing. It was not like that at all. I mean, yes, it was that at the time, but so many people have enjoyed and have gotten a life out of it.
I don't think I'll ever look at a sack of the sugar the same again.
Well, now the sugar was in a cloth sack. It was in a
Okay.
cloth sack.
Well, I'm not going to look at cloth sacks the same anymore either. I've seen sacks like that before.
Okay.
So another thing that's really important to me, I do this show because I want people to live their best life, to be authentic, to be who they are. So what step would you take? What one thing could people do to reawaken their brilliance? And I simply mean by that, one step advice would you give? Be more authentic, to be more happy. What one thing could they do? What could they do to take action?
Well, I think that the lady you had on a few weeks ago, she said, look and say to somebody, well, you're just saying this to yourself, but you look and say, I love you. And then you also reinforce yourself and you say, I love me too. Or you say, I love me. I think that was sort of part of her message that I found that would be good for a person.
And it doesn't cost a dime. That's something, again, that we always have a choice. I believe that, and how important it is. And Sybil, we have another comment for you on chat. Like Mike said, which would have been your interview with Marilyn on Breaking Free, they want to book you for a show same time next year.
Oh, well, I am glad you're optimistic. I'm going to take you up on that.
Well, it is my hope that I'm going to be doing this interview with you again, that I come down to Natchitoches in the fall, and that we have a chance to have more conversation with you, because I think the world is a better place with you in it. I'm a little selfish. I want you to stick around, but I'm not in charge of that. So I want to say this for the world. You've been such a wonderful influence on my life.
And I want to tell Julie that she's been a wonderful influence in my life. And let me tell you, she's taken care of me all week. I mean, royally taking care of me. And it's just been so nice to have her. Friends are just the best commodity on this earth. You cannot have too many of them. And I tell you, I love all of mine. And all of mine, I feel it. I feel their love. I don't have to be told. I feel it. I know when they love me. And that's such a good feeling. It's such a good feeling. And I want you to love your friends and let them know you love them. And Julie, I love you.
And I love you. And I did a really good job. I only got emotional at the end, but I think this is a good place to end the interview. We will be broadcasting this for the world to see. And my goal is that we have thousands of people watching this show, because you have been such an influence on my life and others, and they can see how you started off in challenging circumstances, but you've made something wonderful in your life. So we're going to end it here in Natchitoches, and I say bye now, and Sybil, sign off for us.
Good day. May all of you have good lives.
Thanks. Bye now.
Go out, clear the clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
Thanks for listening to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. Sign up for our newsletter and receive a free copy of our 10 clutter-free living tips. Ready to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire? Learn about Julie's services, including coaching, classes, affirmations, aromatherapy, and her unique How to Declutter Your Life course and more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.